Good afternoon. Welcome to the L4GA Grant Overview for Rockdale County. L4GA stands for Literacy for Learning, Living, and Leading. It is the new version of the Striving Readers Grant being put forth by the Georgia DOE. A couple of changes. The grant period for the L4GA grant is for 3 years, as opposed to Striving Readers, which was set up to be 5. Some similarities. The per pupil allocation is going to be similar to Striving Readers, though the DOE hasn't put out an official amount. You can see here the different amounts that you'll expect. This should be based on your October 2017 FTE. The L4GA grant is really designed to bring together all of the different resources that we have, both at the school, community, and also with our higher education partners, to provide for some sustainable practices that will improve student learning. It's really focused on teacher learning, both pre-service and in-service teachers, classroom literacy instruction. It's also added in a component on school climate, an emphasis on family literacy, and also community school partnerships. Some of the district requirements we've already looked at from a district perspective. We've identified the school district, of course, early child care providers, community partners, Metro RESA, and our higher ed partner of UGA. We also had to identify a feeder pattern that addressed the needs from birth to grade 12. We've actually identified 2 here in Rockdale, and you are part of that grouping. Another requirement is testing, similar to Striving Readers. Birth to age 5 has quite a few different assessments, as you'll see here. K through 5 is going to be using DIBELS Next, though they've pared down the number of assessments per grade level. They'll also be doing the HMH Reading Inventory 3 times per year. That was formerly Scholastic Reading Inventory, but it has been sold. And also grades 6 through 12 will do the Reading Inventory 3 times per year. This grant, unlike Striving Readers, is going to have to follow the supplement, not supplant rule. So you are able to provide new materials or new expenditures, but you cannot supplant things that are already being paid for. Some different grant components that I want to review. You are not responsible for these, but they are part of our overall grant application. These will be completed at the district level. The first piece is the partnership narrative. It is 15 points. That's where we will really kind of describe our partners that we've selected and how they're already involved and going to continue to be involved in this process. We will also complete the management plan and key personnel. That really looks at, from a district perspective, how we're going to manage and evaluate the success of this project. That's worth 10 points. The established need and the assets and needs assessment with root cause analysis, they're 2 separate components, but they allow us to kind of dig into our data and why we really need this project. We will also complete the project plan, the goals, and support. That one's worth 10 points. Really look at what are our specific goals tied to our data and how we're going to achieve them and what that timeline looks like. We will also complete the assessment and the data analysis plan. This really looks at what data we're going to look at, how we're going to look at it, and how we're going to ensure that it informs our changes moving forward. We will also write the professional learning strategy section. That's worth 10 points, where we're going to outline how we're going to do professional learning, not just which pieces we're going to do. We will also complete the resources, strategies, and materials section. This one's worth 10 points. It's kind of a general overview. We don't necessarily have to list vendors or specific books and that sort of thing, but just give them an idea of what we're going to be needing in order to see these change and sustain it. And then, of course, we will complete the budget summary. It's unscored, but it is a key component to let the reviewers know how we plan on spending this money and why it's important. Your responsibility is really pretty simple. It is one component. It's the school literacy plan. It's worth 15 points. We'll actually end up having, I think, 11 of them, one for each of your schools. Your word limit is 2,500. This sounds like a lot, but when you start getting into these components, it's really not. There is a school-specific template in the shared folder on OneDrive that you'll have a link to. It outlines each of these and provides some suggested questions. In general, you're going to go over your school history. You don't have to give us all the nuts and bolts. This should be kind of a brief section, really talking more about any kind of challenges or successes your school has had. You'll also describe your administrative and teacher leadership team. This is where you can set the case for if you've had a lot of turnover, if you are new to that building, anything that might impact y'all's success, both positively or negatively. Community assets, if you've got a really involved PTA, if you have some really strong business partners through your partner in ed, please put those in there because they want to know that you're going to be able to sustain this beyond the life of the grant. You also need to kind of quickly overview past instructional initiatives. Try to stay focused on literacy, but anything that's going to impact your ability to put forth this grant. Current instructional initiatives, also really important. Be sure to include both district and school level initiatives. You'll also talk a little bit about your individual school PL needs, looking at your current staff, looking at your most recent data, looking at historical data trends. What kind of professional learning do your teachers need above and beyond what they would normally get through the district? And that kind of ties into the section on need for an L4GA project. That one really is going to get into the deep dive in your data. So, a general timeline, because you're probably wondering how in the world are we going to get all of this done. We've tried to parse it out so that it's manageable. The first piece is this office mix that is going to be sent out to your schools today, December 28th. We're also going to do a question and answer session on January 2nd. I've chosen two different times, either 9 a.m. or 1:30. They will be, in general, the same session. I'll be there to answer questions. So just decide which one is better for your schedule. We have selected two work session dates. We're going to pull everybody together into one room. Hopefully all of your team members will be able to come on the same date. So you've got two choices early in January, either January 9th or January 11th. And then you also have two later dates to choose from, January 15th or January 16th. We are also going to have an optional session on January 23rd. If for some reason we can't get it completed in the previous two sessions, you will have your district grant team available to help write your school literacy plan on that date as well. If it seems like all of this is very much compacted into January, it is. The grant is due to the Georgia DOE by February 2nd. We are hoping to have it done January 24th so that Tracy can get everything uploaded and into Fluid Review and signed off on well ahead of the deadline and the rush. You'll notice your completed school literacy plan is due. This is all revisions made, all edits made, to be uploaded into OneDrive by January 24th. And this will give us time to make sure that everything aligns, that the budget makes sense, all of that. So the next steps, one of the suggestions from the DOE, and I always think it's a good idea to follow their suggestions since they're the ones reading these grants, please complete the grade band appropriate self-study guide for implementing literacy interventions. You should see these by grade band in the OneDrive folder under resources. It looks like a really lengthy document, but most of it is just kind of explaining the process. Please go through that and kind of touch base with your leadership team on where you are as a building and what you might need to change and implement through this grant. Also, review the school literacy plan template for your school. They all look the same. I just went ahead and saved them as school specific so that as you make changes, there aren't any confusions. Make note of any questions so that when you log into one of the Zoom Q&A sessions on January 2nd, you can go ahead and ask me those and we can expedite that process. Also, please go ahead and email me your selected dates for January work sessions. That way we can go ahead and make sure we've got the paperwork ready for your substitutes. Thank you to Mike Moriello and the PL team for covering those substitutes as needed. If you need to make changes to your grant team, maybe you've talked to someone and they're a little too busy, please let me know so that we can make sure we're looking for the right people and have them linked to the right folders. In the meantime, I want to introduce your L4GA grant support team, myself, Joanna Anglin, Tracy Knutson, Shauna Miller, and Erica Tucker. Our goal is to make this process as easy as possible for you and your school. We want to make sure that you're successful. We received the previous Striving Readers grant, so we're hopeful on this one. We've seen some really positive trends for our schools that received the grant previously, and we're hoping to be able to spread that district-wide. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email any of us, and I look forward to seeing you on January 2nd.